Worship has always been one of those things I've always felt like I've been in a cage when it comes to worship. I've never been able to be free. It's always been something where I've never really had that freedom to do that. And when I felt like God was calling me to lift my hands, or God was calling me to go to the altar and get on my knees and worship Him in that way, that's something that's always been a block for me. It wasn't this, what are people going to think of me? Because I was experiencing those same issues at home when I was trying to worship. It was just this area in my life where there wasn't freedom. And because of that, I feel like there was a disconnect during that time. It wasn't something that I really looked forward to. It wasn't something that I really got a lot out of. I can look back and see times where God met with me in worship. But it always came as I was obedient to what He was calling me to do. The aha moment, I think, was with you up on the mountain. We started talking about kind of some of the things we've seen the Lord do in the past. And as I began to look back and think about that, I began to realize that a lot of the breakthroughs in my life happened during worship time. So for me, it was this realization of how needed it was for my life. From that, just listening to the Lord during worship, and when He said, come to the altar and worship me. That was a couple Sundays ago. It still wasn't something that came easily. It's still something I had to will myself to do. But it was just the understanding and the realization of how significant that's been for me in the past. And those breakthrough moments in my life where significant breakthrough has happened and helped me realize the significance and my need for that kind of freedom in worship now. So now it's awesome. Just absolutely incredible. Whether it's, here at church worshiping the Lord, or whether it's at home, I incorporate worship into my devotional time every day. I can honestly say it's in that place of worship. It's in that place of listening to the Lord during worship when He says, lift your hand and worship me on your knees. It's in that time of worship that I genuinely feel closest to God. It's really unexplainable, but you just feel a closeness like you don't in other avenues. It's not lifting your hands for the sake of lifting your hands, but it's this understanding of God's calling me to worship and express my worship physically. And as you do that, and as I do that, His presence just comes in a really unique way. God didn't design worship for Him only. He designed worship for us. It's a time where, as we lift up our praise and our worship for how awesome, how amazing He is, there's something about that He chooses to meet with us in a unique way. It's a time where we free our minds of things and we encounter God. And for me, it's been one of those times where I hear God the clearest. So my encouragement would be, if God's calling you to worship, if you feel this inner stirring in your heart to lift your hands, or this inner stirring in your heart to go to the altar during worship, it's probably God saying, hey, come meet with me. And I think a big part of that is this idea of surrender in the midst of worship. God, this time isn't about me, it's all about you. And I'm going to come to you the way that I feel like you're calling me to. It's worth the plunge. That becomes easier the more that we do it, even if it's uncomfortable.